Harper Audio presents In the Enemy's House, the secret saga of the FBI agent and the codebreaker who caught the Russian spies, by Howard Blum, read by David Colacci. I stood in the vestibule of the enemy's house, having entered by stealth. I had no idea where the corridors in the KGB's edifice would take us, or what we would find when we reached the end of the search. But the keys were ours, and we were determined to use them. FBI counterintelligence supervisor Bob Lamphere. Naught's had, all's spent, where our desire is got without content. 'Tis safer to be that which we destroy than by destruction dwell in doubtful joy. William Shakespeare, Macbeth. A note to the reader. The main foreign intelligence arm of the Russian state has been reorganized and renamed several times throughout its history. For the sake of clarity and convenience, it is called the KGB in this account. That was the organization's final name before the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Prologue. The Storks Fly Away. Bob Lamphere stared at the phone, waiting, willing it to ring. It was the tail end of the afternoon on a perfect late spring day, June 19th, 1953, in Washington, D.C., the time of day when Bob liked to have a restorative scotch and soda. Instead, Bob, usually so rock-steady, calm even in crisis to the point of detachment, found himself in the fifth-floor office of his boss, the assistant director of the FBI, anxiously staring at the phone, waiting. If there was one thing Bob should have learned in his 12 years as an FBI agent, in all the long days and longer nights he'd spent on espionage cases, it was how to wait. He had sat in parked cars until his legs grew stiff, stood with stolid discipline under leaky awnings in the teeming rain, huddled down low in his seat in the back of movie theaters. Physical surveillance, the Bureau manual insisted, was an essential skill for field work. Any agent, especially one like Bob, who had risen to the rank of supervisor in the intelligence division, either learned patience or went looking for another job. But there had never been a wait like this. Bob tried telling himself he had done what he could. He had written, damn the consequences, a blunt memo to J. Edgar Hoover stating that the facts of the case were clear. At the very least, the wife did not deserve her sentence. She should not be executed. And the director, in a response that filled Bob with both surprise and a measure of respect, swiftly put this argument into a letter that he signed with his looping schoolboy cursive and had hand-delivered to the judge. The judge, however, would not be persuaded. He was adamant. If the prisoners did not cooperate, the sentence would be enforced just before nightfall. Now all Bob could do was stare at the phone. It was a direct line to the death house in Sing Sing prison. Al Belmont, the hard-edged, by-the-book assistant director of the FBI's Domestic Intelligence Division, whom Bob had known since their quarrelsome days years ago working in the New York field office, was in charge of the command post. In Belmont's suit jacket pocket he had a typed list of questions that Bob, in a wishful burst of optimism, had helped prepare. 2 stenographers were on call in an adjacent room. And further down a long, dimly lit prison corridor, behind a steel door with the word silence above the lintel, was the electric chair. There would be 2 reasons for the phone to ring in the fifth-floor office in the Justice Department building in Washington. Either the 2 prisoners had finally agreed to provide pertinent information, or they would have received 3 jolts of electricity, 2,000 volts for 3 seconds, dropping to 500 volts for 57 seconds so as not to cook the flesh, another 2,000 volts steadying to 500 volts, and a final 2,000-volt surge, and were now dead. The office
Sample complete. Ready to continue?